Right, so continuing the role we've got Rory McCune about how not to become a security cultist.
Right, so I'm obviously a bit of an exception because I'm not manager yet and I will admit to being over 35. Welcome to my rather oddly named talk. People see, probably just come along to see what I'm on about. It's a very unusual thing for a talk. This talk is about crossing the mountains of madness, how to avoid becoming a security cultist. Words that probably don't mean much at all to anybody because I made it up. So let's start off. Let's start with base camp. What we're going to do today, I'll briefly mention it, is we're going to cross the mountains of madness, here, here, and here, and we're going to get to the plateau of security sanity, where everything in security makes lots of sense. That's the goal, that's where we're going to get to. So, let's crack on. We'll start with base camp. Introduction stuff. Right, I have been in information and IT security for X years. I don't put that up anymore, but it's a number more than 10. I am a tester for Scottish TS. We're a small testing company. We do security testing and app security work. I help out with chapter leading OWASP Scotland. If anyone's interested in web app security or mobile security, we do meetings in Edinburgh now. We're also hopefully doing stuff in Glasgow, so please do come along. There's a mailing list, you can find stuff there. And I'll also mention this, the t-shirt. If you see any Rory's with these t-shirts, there's a Stack Exchange. This is a really good Q&A site. So if you're interested in security at all, you've got questions you want to ask, this is a really good place to go and ask them. We're a relatively friendly bunch, and there's a chat room which has some on-topic chat every so often. So, what am I talking about? Cargo cults. The idea of a cargo cult came from the Pacific Islands after the Second World War, when some of the Pacific Islands started getting cargo dropped to them by the United States. And that actually developed into a religious thing, where people got this idea that cargo was some kind of religious entity and they would drop it. And they thought that if they did things like making planes, you see planes brought cargo, so I make a plane, cargo comes. So they died. And that was this kind of idea of having a cargo cult. And that's turned into something in programming. Cargo cult programming is an idea that people apply something which is best practice, and they apply it every single time, without maybe stopping to think, is that best practice actually applicable here? Is that something that actually makes sense to what I'm doing? So it's become something in programming where it's the idea of something which may sometimes be right, and it may not be, but you apply it every single time because you don't really understand why you're doing it. And you'll see some cool little graphics through my presentation. They come from this, the Unspeakable Vault of Doom. So this is a Lovecraftian webcomic. So if you've done any H.P. Lovecraft stuff, or you've seen Hellboy, or you've read any of the books, you'll see some Call of Cthulhu stuff. This is a cool little webcomic. And the reason I can have the graphics here is I've got, for each one of my Mountains of Madness, which is a book by H.P. Lovecraft, they're protected by one of the outer gods. And I'm going to see, there's a little quiz here, which you have to try and work out why I've chosen that one. So, oh yeah, and this is a random string which I'm not going to explain at all at the moment. Right, so what's this talk actually about? That's great. We know what cargo cult is now, we know what the Mountains of Madness are. What am I actually going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about cargo cults in security. So here we have some cargo cultists. You'd think we're security people, right? We're bright, we're intelligent, we know what we're doing. We don't use cargo cults, do we? We don't blindly tell people to do things without understanding why they should do them or why they maybe shouldn't do them. Unfortunately, yeah, there's loads of cargo cults in security, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this talk. There's a lot of cases where you might see it coming from a standard. So you might say, ISO 27001 says X, therefore you must do X. PCI Council say X, therefore you will do this. All these places, these can turn into cargo cults. They can turn into a thing where you don't actually need to do it, but it's kind of easy to tell people. So you end up with cargo cults in security. And I'm going to argue that's bad. You don't want to do it. It's a really bad idea for two reasons. One, you actually might make security worse. I've got some concrete examples of this later on, but I actually think by applying security controls in the wrong place, you actually make security worse, not better. So more security can make things worse. See if I can prove that later on. And reputational damage. This is far more common. If you work in a corporate, you will work with IT people, you will work with developers, you will work with the business. If they get the idea you're just telling them to do stuff that costs them money and you can't explain why, they will not like you. You will not have a good reputation at the company and they will try and avoid you. They will actually try and avoid coming to you because they don't believe what you're saying anymore. So if you can't justify what you're saying, you're going to run into difficulties. However, I'd be lying in saying if I said that we couldn't do this at all. Several good things. It's easy. If I can point at a standard, and I can say page 34, subsection A of this standard says you have to do this. I don't have to have an argument with someone, I don't have to debate with them, I just say standard says, and you have to do it. So it's an easy thing to do. Sometimes, and this is disappointing, but it's true, it might be the only option. Some businesses aren't really that interested in having good security. They do know they have to comply with standards though. So if PCI Council, if you take card payments, PCI Council say you must do X, then you might have to just say, sorry, there might not even be a good reason for this, but you do have to do it because it's in the standard. So maybe the only option. The last one, disappointingly, but well worth noting, is cover your backside. If a security standard says do something, and you do it, and it goes horribly wrong, you can kind of point to the standard and go, well, it was best practice. I was just following this to be best practice. Try and avoid that, but I've been lying and I don't want to be disingenuous and say that's never going to be something you should do, because it is. So, let's get on to mountains. First question. I'm guessing anyone who hasn't seen the webcomic will have no idea what that is. Anyone? Seen the webcomic? Okay. That is Yog-Sothoth. He is a character from H.P. Lovecraft's universe. And his key phrase is, I am the gate, I am the key. Anyone guess what we're talking about? Encryption! Yay! We're going to talk about encryption, because there's loads of cargo cults in encryption, disappointingly. First one. This one, I'm starting off really easy. I'm hoping this one is entirely non-contentious and everyone would agree with me it's not true. Encryption equals secure. Unfortunately, this is only getting more prevalent. You cannot open up the press, the mainstream press have got hold of this. I noticed the BBC News the other day, there's this big article about 2014 is going to be the year of encryption because of the NSA and all that stuff. We're going to encrypt everything. And what they were doing was conflating the idea that if you encrypt everything, it's all secure. If I apply encryption, it's secure. Absolutely not. Security people know that's not true. But it does get put about. So, website security page. Padlock will be visible on your bottom right of your web browser. This means you're in secure mode. No, it doesn't. In what way is a padlock on my browser mean I'm secure? It means the connection might be encrypted. But I'm a security tester by trade, and I do phishing attacks. And when I do a phishing attack, the first thing I do is I go and buy a valid SSL certificate for my domain. So if someone follows my phishing link, they will have the lovely padlock. Are they secure? Should they put their password into my phishing page? No. But, and this is dangerous. And the reason this is dangerous is that if people read these things, which they probably know, but if they do read these things, they might get the wrong idea. They might get the idea, as long as I see the padlock, I can stop thinking. I don't have to worry about the fact this graphic isn't quite right, why is the domain name changed? I'm secure now, aren't I? So it's dangerous. It's actually going to make things worse. And the other one, I just picked this one because I really hate it. Military grade encryption. What the heck is military grade encryption? I often liken this. I think if a bank told me that their bank vault was made of the same rivets used for battleships, would I feel more comfortable? Probably not. But people feel the need to put this, military grade encryption. I don't even know what that is. The best one I ever heard actually was a cloud storage company, a big cloud storage company. And they had this great phrase. They said that we have this certification called SSAE 16, which is an American audit thing. And because of that, our encryption is bank safe and hacker proof. And I thought there's so many things wrong with that sentence. But it's this idea that people conflate encryption and security. So that's a really easy cargo cult. Everyone's going to agree you shouldn't do that. Let's move on to one that might be slightly more contentious. Encryption everywhere is good for security. That, to my mind, is a cargo cult. The reason is, you can put more encryption in and make a system less secure, would be my contention. I'll give you an example. Say, a lot of what businesses do is they send data from one company to another. So it goes from company A to company B. And someone in a call center needs to send lots of customer data to the other company. If you don't have proper systems, you might think, how can I encrypt this? Because I know I need to encrypt it. No sending customer data in the clear. I know, Excel's got encryption. I'll put a password on it. It's AES-256, so it's good encryption. I'll put a nice long password on it, and I'll send it to the other person. They'll get it, they put the password in. We don't send the password via email, we send it some other way. And everything's great. So I've got a nice secure system here. I've encrypted the data, and it's nice, and it's good, and I've stopped it being intercepted. Okay, sounds good. Well, how do you do antivirus checking these days? Well, you do it in the cloud, you do it in the server, you do it in the perimeter, because desktop AV is not very good. Slight problem. What have I done? I've encrypted the data with a key that the server doesn't have, a key the cloud doesn't have, and a key the perimeter doesn't have. It can't do antivirus anymore. Do you have data loss prevention? So the idea you stop sensitive data leaving the company without authorization. Again, if you encrypt all the data at the desktop, data loss prevention says, don't know, a file went, it was this big, it went from that person to that person. What it contained, I have no idea. So the company as a whole is less secure because they've got more encryption. Because they can't do antivirus checking, they can't do content checking, they're actually blind to what it is. But theoretically speaking, they've got more encryption. So that encryption everywhere is good for security. Again, people come out with that idea, and security people will do that. They'll say, hey, we should have more encryption. Well, maybe not. Think about why you're doing it. What might be the side effects of encrypting things? One of the big side effects is defensive systems can't see your data anymore. Okay, the longer the key, the more secure. This one probably won't make your security any worse, but it's a reputational damage one. The good example is you see people, actually saw it back on that slide a little while ago. You saw it say, we use 256-bit encryption. Really? Why do you need that? The longest key that has ever been broken, symmetric key, is an RC5 64 key, which was cracked at the distributed.NET project. They have been trying to crack a 72-bit key for the last 4,000 days. 1,500 people participated in that project yesterday, and it's a lot less popular than it used to be. So 1,500 people have been trying for 4,000 days to crack one single key. They haven't succeeded. Why do I need anything better than 128-bit encryption? Short answer is you don't. So the downside to this is two things. One, people might think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about saying we need 256 encryption, unless you've got a really good reason. The other part is there is a performance hit. If you have more encryption, you make the keys longer, you're adding performance hit. If you've got a high performance website, that can actually have an impact on your bottom line, because you have to buy more servers, you have to buy accelerators, you have to buy something to pay for that encryption. And if it's adding no security whatsoever, what will be done? That's not a good idea. So, longer the key, more secure is definitely a cargo call. It does get done a lot. So that's encryption. It is important. This is the thing, I think that the key point of this whole presentation is these things can be true, they may be true, but you have to think before you use them. Always think. So, encryption is important, but it's not a panacea. It's not going to fix all your problems. It doesn't need security. It can be misused. It's very easy to misuse encryption. An encrypt application will make you less secure than you were before. So, next one. We have another Intergod, which knows the retina. This is Shub-Niggurath, who's the black goat of the young list. Black goat of the wood with 10,000 young. It's some great names for his characters. Anyone any idea why? What have we got lots of that we're getting more of all the time? No? Money. Money would be one thing, but another one in security, passwords. Everyone's getting more and more passwords. You can't have less passwords because that's crazy talk. And security, unfortunately, inflicts a lot of really bad advice on users with regards to passwords. I've been in IT security for a long time now, and when I started, people were talking about getting rid of passwords. That was 14 years ago now. They're still talking about getting rid of passwords. I've got more than I ever had. But security people will tell you, you must use long random strings for your passwords. They might tell you, I actually saw one the other day, they were talking about 15 character password minimum. Upper, lower, numeric, special, nothing you use in the last 12, no dictionary words. And I was thinking, that's fantastic. What will everyone do when given that, and made to do that? Right, there's a couple of things you'll do. One, you'll write them down. And I heard a good example of this from a guy who worked for the military. So he used to work for the Air Force. And he worked at a base. And they had a system, they didn't make it even worse. They had a system assigned password. It said, we're going to tell you what your password is, this 15 character random string. He said, if you ever want to log in to anyone, you walk up to the desk, flip the keyboard up. That's where the password is. No mortal person can remember these things. There's a couple of weird people who can remember these things. And I'll come back to my slide from earlier. Can anyone remember the string I put up? I can, and I actually wrote it. And yet, that's the kind of thing we tell people to remember. It's a terrible idea. So the other thing that people will do, if you have that, obviously as I said, is they'll write them down. But then security people thought that, we thought, we'll tell them not to write it down. You can't write it down, don't you? So you get this situation where we're going to give you this strong password policy, you've got to have these strong passwords, and then we're going to make you not write them down. What do you do at that point? Well, what you do, a lot of people will do, is they'll use the same password on multiple sites. That's more dangerous than writing it down in a lot of cases. Because what's happened is we've seen database after database of passwords getting cracked. And what the attackers do now, every single time, get the list of usernames, get the list of passwords, and go around all the other sites, trying those combinations. So it becomes easier, they get a number of accounts every single time, to the point where people like Facebook will actually look for the breaches, and then check their own passwords before the attackers do it. But not everyone does that. So people are breaking into systems because of the password advice security people have given them. So I'll give two counter-examples to this. I would argue that in certain cases, writing passwords down is actually more secure than not writing them down. You take an example of someone, say they live at home, say they live alone, they get their passwords, they write them in a book, they put them in a little box, put it in a drawer. What are the risks to that? Well, the risks to that are someone's going to break into their house. While they're nicking the TV, the Xbox, and the PC, they're going to open up the drawer, open up the thing, go, oh look, Twitter passwords, I can now send tweets to this guy. No, they're not. They're going to take the TV, they're going to take the Xbox, take the PC, they're going to go out the door. So this guy has got less risk than if he does his alternative, which is setting those passwords to be something which is the same. The other thing, and that's maybe slightly contentious, because we do tell people not to write them down for good reasons. The other one which I've seen security people do, and I'm sure this is security people, is on a website, I've now seen websites that stop you pasting your password into the password box. That's going to be a security person that told someone to do that. I know it will be. It's a terrible piece of advice. I use a password safe. I think it's one of the only sane ways to handle passwords right now. I have a password safe, I keep all my passwords in there, I've got over 100. No way I can remember them. I now have to not use one of my random passwords for that site because I can't paste it in, and it's a pain. So they've made me less secure by trying to be secure. Cargo cult, and they've got that from the cargo cult of never let people write down their passwords. Bad application of a security principle. So just to make anything just that little bit worse, we also tell them that if you work in a corporate, I guarantee you that's your password policy. You will change your password every next day. So you have to say, let's try and understand why. Why are people telling people this? Well, the answer is quite simple. The theory behind the security control is if an attacker gets your password, say 15 days into your password change cycle, you want to limit how long they've got access to that password before it's changed and rendered useless. That's actually quite a good theory. But there's a problem. The problem's humans. Does anyone here have a password they have to rotate on a regular basis? Yeah. Do any of you put a number that you change on a regular basis, or maybe put something related to the date when you had to change it? Yeah? Is that familiar as a concept? So I do password audits for companies, and I guarantee you, when I open it up, I will see something like company name January, company name February, I'll see password 1, password 2, password 3. So say you're an attacker, it's 15, you had a password, they've had to rotate their password. Last time the password was company name of January, and you're trying to break back in March. What are you going to try? You're going to try company name March. And you're probably going to be right, because humans are predictable in that way. And because we've forced them to change their password, all they've done is change it to a predictable value. So they've actually made it worse, because you've got this false sense of security. The attackers can't have access beyond 30 days. In reality, because of the way your passwords are set up, actually they can. And also I'd say that most people, if they told they don't have to change it, might choose a stronger value, because they only have to memorize it once. They don't have to change it all the time. So there are occasions where you want to change your password, but blindly applying that rule is a terrible idea that makes security worse. And we as security people do that. I've done it myself. Hands up, I've done it in the corporate security game. And the problem with this sort of stuff is if you go into a corporate security, you try to say to them, stop doing that, you'll be told no. Even if you explain it and rationalize it, you'll be told no, because you're appearing to make security worse. That doesn't generally fly too well. And that's when you fall back on your standard. So until someone comes out with a standard and says it, we're pretty much stuck. So, yeah, password policies should vary depending on the system. If all your password policies for every one of your systems are the same, you're doing it wrong. Because they don't have the same risk profile, they don't have the same threat profile, not the same people that are attacking them. It should be varied based on users. Your user population matters. Depending on who your users are, you have to think, well, what's the best I can do for these people? This group of people, are they going to remember? If it's a system they log into once every 3 weeks, forget the chance that they're going to remember a strong random passwords, because people's memories don't run that way. And passwords are inadequate. I'd love to see the end of passwords, I'd love to see the death of passwords, but I could easily be here another 5 years talking about how passwords are still a problem. And I don't have huge confidence, I won't be. Last one. Okay, this guy. Great, thanks. This is Azathoth, a funny depiction of Azathoth, who's a horrible chaos at the centre of the universe, according to Lovecraft. This one no one will get because it's really tenuous, because I couldn't have a good one. One word for this cargo cult. Secure. Secure is a cargo cult. The concept of absolute security is a cargo cult. If someone says, this is secure, this will make you secure, I am secure, this is insecure, they're wrong. Because you can't be absolutely secure. You're not absolutely secure for everyone. A system which is secure from criminal over cyberspace is not secure from your government who've got a warrant to come and see the system data. You know, if that's your problem. It's not the same as security you might be insecure from an internal person who's already got access. The idea of absolute security is something I think the security industry needs to get out of. Stop saying this will make you secure, the system will make you secure. It's very easy because it's short and it's kind of punchy. There you go, it's going to be secure. But in reality what you're doing is telling people a lie. And the problem with absolute security, the thing that causes you problems, is if you say this will make you secure, and then someone gets broken into in 6 months' time, at that point you're in trouble, because then it's like, I told you that was going to make me secure. Why am I not secure? Why not? And also, you want to come back for another budget in a year's time after telling them that last year you were going to make them secure? Are you getting the budget next year? Well, you told me I was going to be secure last year. Why do I need more money? Don't use secure as an absolute. You know, it should be, it's this system against these types of threats for this long with this kind of mitigated control if we get broken into. It's more wordy, it's harder to sell, but ultimately it's going to be more accurate. Security is always relative. There's no such thing as absolute security. So if anyone sells you, that's also another way to spot that kind of thing, is if someone starts selling, giving you absolute security, you know that they are either shortcutting, in which case ask them to explain more, or they don't understand what they're talking about. So, here we are, quite quickly, trying to pick up the gap in time. On the plateau of security sanity, we hopefully now have a situation where we realise you have to think about security. The problem with security is that it tends to put out absolutes all over the place. There's lots of standards, lots of documents. A lot of them were written a long time ago. They don't apply now, and they don't apply universally. So the message of this presentation is question them. If someone says to you, you have to do X, why? Why am I doing X? What am I mitigating with that? What threat is being mitigated? What risk is being controlled? How am I making my system more secure by doing that? And what are the consequences of doing that? What are the other potential consequences? And you should always ask that when you talk about system security, because it's the only way you'll get to this kind of point where you at least can say, here's what I've done, why I've done it, and what maybe needs to be done in the future. Questions? Any questions? Anyone want to disagree? Feel free. No questions? No? Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, exactly. None of it is rocket science. I think you can only sell it by showing the failure of the current industry. People have been selling the idea of these policies and standards and saying this is enough. And if you perhaps explain some of the side effects, and this is where, to an extent, something like pen testing can play a part. So if you want to explain the failure of password policies, get a password audit done. And if you show people, look, we do password audits and we can see people rotating their passwords. We can see them, so these controls are useless. I mean, you explain that they're useless and that's why they're useless. If you look at, so that's for passwords, you can do that. For other ones, it can be more difficult, but it's really about trying to say, take it a little bit further than the basic security and say, actually, this is why we're doing this. It is a difficult, I wouldn't expect to be able to walk into a board who hadn't done much security in the past, or hadn't been told much about security, and be able to do that first off. But if you're trying to educate them past that point and say there's more to it than just, you will. Hopefully they'll understand it more, because then they'll be able to say, we're getting tailored security, we're not just getting too much or too little, but the right amount. But yeah, I'm not saying it's necessarily easy to sell, because it is more difficult. It's not a really simple message.
Hi, what's your views on... Sorry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
What's your views on two-factor authentication?
Two-factor, well, so my view, the answer is that it helps. It helps in certain circumstances. If you have a situation, static passwords need to die because we've seen how often they are cracked and how easily they are. And two-factor gets you so far, but there's weaknesses in two-factor. One of the things that concerns me at the moment is a lot of people, as with anything, they try and do it in the most cost-effective manner. So the moment when people are saying two-factor is SMS, it's two-factor is SMS because that's the idea is it's a second factor on my phone. What if the SMS I'm using is a Skype account on the same PC as where I type the password in? Well, that's pretty useless, but many people don't think about that. And also with things like Android, it's possible to hijack SMS. You get some of the Android hackers here, they'll tell you it's possible to hijack SMS. So I think there's a problem here where people are trying to do things cheaply, but that's just inevitable. But I do think that two-factor done properly is a lot better than single factor is ever going to be. So it's an advancement, like anything in security, it's not perfect. Yeah. I don't like biometrics. I'm not a fan of biometrics. There's a couple of reasons I'm not a fan of biometrics. One, there's the problem of loss. If someone copies your biometric, you can't change it. Only 10 fingers. So you keep back my fingerprint, they've got them. If you could do biometrics really well, then obviously they do add something, but it does concern me. There's the privacy aspect of it. Do I really want people to have every sort of retina or whatever other print about me? There's the fact of false acceptance rates. No one's ever got it down to the point where it's, good or bad. But that said, in certain circumstances, it can be quite useful. See, the problem with fingerprint readers is I can take a gummy fingerprint. Well, if I've got a system where I've got a security guard watching you do it, I can't do the gummy fingerprint anymore. That's actually a good additional security measure, but it's a point about getting, the same way, in some circumstances, useful. As a general end-user thing, I was actually kind of hopeful of Apple's stuff. You know, people were saying, you know, they had something better than just your basic fingerprint reader. It sounded really promising, and then of course the gummy fingerprint worked again, and it was like, okay, right, no, shame. So yeah, I'd like to see them. I see them having a role in it, but I'm a bit leery of them, just mainly around the fact that, you know, being able to change them. It just kind of worries me the idea you be tied to physical personality. Oh, yeah.
What's your opinion of the likes of single sign-on ecosystems? I'm a member of the OpenID Foundation, which is often used by the likes of Facebook and Twitter for seamless authentication.
That's a difficult one. I suppose with that, the thing with that is you put more into one place. So if you have a situation where if I compromise one credential, I then get access to multiple systems, then obviously it's a bigger impact and it's a bigger target. If you said to me, I can get rid of 10 passwords and have one thing with good two-factor, I might argue that's actually a benefit because the good two-factor is better than the passwords. But obviously the problem at the moment is you're seeing a lot of motivated attackers, and if I see something where if I get this one thing, I get everyone's digital life, or someone's complete digital life, then that's obviously a very, very valuable target. So the concern there is that there's going to be people focusing on them as an attack mechanism. Cool. Right, thanks very much for that.